Hi everyone, and welcome back to Bryan's Business World. Today we're going to be discussing how to evaluate a new career field for yourself. Now, this may be a little bit different than our standard discussions for entrepreneurs, maybe a bit more of an employee focus, but it could also be very applicable to entrepreneurs, especially if you are thinking of launching your own business in a particular field, especially a field that requires formal education or even informal education and some licensure. So, what are three things to at least look at initially when you are considering to go into a new field? Really, three areas. One, formal education. Two, the training required. And three, licensure. Now, many people, when they're evaluating a career, they kind of lump, I think rather mistakenly, all of these three things together. They are very distinct and can have their own unique, separate challenges and problems, and you really need to break it down and look at them one at a time to make sure if a field could be a good fit for you. So let's talk about the first component, education. So what I mean by education is any formal schooling, kind of the book schooling. This could mean, college or university courses. It also could mean online learning, and it could also mean self-taught online or offline learning that you do. But the emphasis on the educational component here is the book learning, or more theoretical learning. So you learn the principles, the foundations, things like that for the field that you are going into. Now, with the book learning, or rather the education component as we're calling it, you could have obviously tuition costs, living expenses if you're pursuing that full time come into play. Also, there can be a time component of it. And just an important side note for yourself, many people do not evaluate or assign a dollar value to the time component when they're getting a formal education. Just about anybody can get a job of some type, even a minimum wage job, and there is an opportunity cost, greater or lesser depending on your position, to pursue any formal education on a full-time basis. So a lot of people don't factor in the opportunity cost or the missed income cost when they're evaluating getting another degree and pursuing something full-time. So education component, very important both to look at the hard cost in terms of tuition or classes or educational materials and the opportunity costs. So be sure you include that in your calculations in terms of evaluating a new potential field or opportunity for yourself. The second thing really look at carefully, and many people miss this one, is training. The field of medicine has quite a tail of training in terms of residency, rotations that goes as part of its education process. And the residency in medicine can go for quite a long period of time, depending upon the specialty and where the residency is at. So there can be quite almost a distinction between your residency and the actual book learning or formal schooling. This can be the case with many fields where you've got to get a lot of practical experience. Maybe you need to apprentice. The construction trades are largely focused on training and apprenticing and less on the formal schooling. We'll talk about that more in a minute. But really look at the time involved in training. Now, during this training period, you may have significantly or greatly reduced earnings power. So if you have an education component and then you have a training period, the actual opportunity cost for you may be quite significant from your reduced earnings during the training period. And also, you may not be fully licensed or fully credentialed during the training period. And if you quit at that point or got out of the field, that could be a tremendous loss because you've already got the full education already completed. So do be mindful of what the training looks like, who's going to provide it to you, is it available beyond just the book learning and the formal education. Third thing, really look at and consider is licensing. If licensing is very difficult, regulated, bureaucratized, that could be a very unpleasant surprise at the end of all of this education and training. You therefore cannot legally be engaged in the field you have selected. Also, if the licensing is really rigorous and difficult and bureaucratic, the field itself may be quite rigid, and it may not be open to innovation or to doing things in a creative way. So really be sure that you pay attention to the very end sort of step with the actual licensure, whether it's getting your master plumber's license, law license, medical license, accounting, whatever the field may be, or even software certifications. It's maybe a little bit of a different animal than licensure, but really be sure you're paying attention to that. At the end of all of this, you will be able to qualify. Certain things in your background may prohibit you. For example, in the financial services industry, if you have a criminal record, especially a certain type of criminal record, it may be impossible to be licensed, period. Interestingly enough, if you have a criminal background in law, you may be able to get licensed easier than in financial services. So really make sure that you look at that last critical piece of the licensure. And part of that licensure also, of course, in many fields is testing or some certification as well. So make sure you look at that last piece. Again, the three key components are education, training, and licensure. And make sure you look carefully at each of them and assess the difficulty and costs of each of them independently, rather than just sort of looking at the one sort of book learning component. I hope you've enjoyed our show today, and please follow us, leave us with any comments, and I look forward to hearing from you soon. Thank you.